in the turbulent years following the First World War. Europe was a place of contradictions, rebuilding from destruction while chasing modern dreams, searching for stability while experimenting with bold ideas. Among the figures drifting through this uncertain world was Victor Lustig, a man whose name would one day echo through history as one of the most daring con artists of all time. Born in Austria-Hungary in 1890, Lustig was not born into wealth or privilege, but he possessed a gift far more powerful, a sharp intelligence combined with an extraordinary ability to read people. From an early age, he realized that human beings could be guided not by force, but by suggestion, that people often believed what they wanted to believe, especially when flattered or tempted with the promise of easy fortune. He grew up learning multiple languages, mastering the polished manners of Europe's upper classes, and cultivating the appearance of refinement. By the time he was a young man, he could slip into a crowd of aristocrats and hold his own with convincing charm, while at the same time plotting how to relieve them of their money. Before he ever set his sights on the Eiffel Tower, Lustig made a name for himself with smaller yet clever scams. One of his most famous early tricks was the so-called Rumanian Box, a device he claimed could duplicate banknotes. It looked scientific enough, with levers and hidden compartments. And Lustig performed the trick with such confidence that victims handed over large sums of money, believing they would soon double their fortunes. Of course, the machine was nothing but a prop, and Lustig always disappeared before suspicion caught up with him. What made him remarkable was not just the trick itself, but the way he carried it out, never in a rush, never aggressive, but always with elegance, as though he were offering a legitimate opportunity to a select few. This pattern would define his career. The performance of trustworthiness, the illusion of exclusivity, and the manipulation of psychology. By the 1920s, Lustig had grown into a man perfectly suited for the environment of Paris, a city glittering with culture but weighed down with economic strain. The Eiffel Tower, the great iron giant built for the 1889 World's Fair, was still standing tall, but had become a subject of criticism. Many Parisians viewed it as ugly, impractical, and costly to maintain. Newspapers occasionally discussed how expensive it was to repaint and repair the tower, and whispers even circulated that perhaps it might one day be dismantled. To most, these were just casual complaints, but to Lustig, they were the seed of a masterpiece. He realized that if he could convince wealthy businessmen that the French government truly wanted to sell the tower as scrap metal, he might turn this public doubt into his personal fortune. Thus began the planning of one of the boldest scams in history. A scheme so daring that even today it seems impossible to believe it worked. And yet Lustig, with his charm, forged documents, and unmatched confidence, would transform Paris's most iconic landmark into the centerpiece of his greatest con. Lustig knew that for his plan to succeed, he had to make it look official. So he crafted a persona as a high-ranking government official from the Ministry of Posts and Telegraphs, the department that oversaw public works. He printed forged government stationery, created documents stamped with convincing seals, and wrote letters that sounded bureaucratic enough to pass as authentic. Then, he reached out to a carefully selected group of wealthy scrap metal dealers in Paris, inviting them to a private meeting at the luxurious Hotel des Crillons, one of the city's most prestigious establishments. By choosing this location, he immediately established authority, the kind of place where real government business might plausibly occur. When the businessman arrived, Lustig carried himself with calm authority, wearing an impeccable suit and projecting the air of a man burdened with confidential knowledge. He explained that the French government had decided to sell the Eiffel Tower due to its enormous maintenance costs and its growing unpopularity among citizens. He stressed that this was a highly confidential matter, not yet public, and therefore the businessmen must keep everything discreet. The combination of secrecy, prestige, and the chance for an enormous profit hooked them instantly. During the meeting, Lustig spoke of the tower's size, the vast amount of iron it contained, and the incredible profits that could be made from scrapping it. He deliberately watched the faces of the dealers, gauging their reactions, and focused on one man, in particular, Poisson, a newcomer to the Paris scrap trade, eager to prove himself against more established rivals. Poisson wanted legitimacy, influence, and recognition, and Lustig sensed his insecurity. After the official meeting, Lustig arranged a private conversation with Poisson, subtly hinting that, as a government man, he sometimes needed extra consideration to make such deals go smoothly. This suggestion of a bribe made the scam even more believable. After all, in that era, corruption in public office was not unheard of. Poisson, wanting to secure the deal and win favor, agreed to pay Lustig both the supposed purchase price for the tower and an additional under-the-table payment. Lustig accepted with the grace of a man doing routine business, then quickly collected the funds and prepared his escape. Within days, he was gone from Paris, traveling to Austria with a fortune in hand. When Poisson eventually realized he had been tricked, his humiliation was so great that he never reported the fraud to the authorities. The con had worked perfectly. Not only had Lustig pulled off an audacious scam, but he had also silenced his victim with shame. Incredibly, Lustig had just sold the Eiffel Tower. Most con artists would have stopped there, satisfied with their improbable success and cautious not to push their luck. But Victor Lustig was not most con artists. Having discovered that his first victim remained silent, he realized that his scam carried less risk than he had imagined. Emboldened, he returned to Paris only months later and prepared to stage the exact same con again. Once more, he assumed his identity as a government official, prepared new documents, and invited another group of scrap dealers to the Hotel de Crillon. This time, however, the businessmen were more cautious. While some listened with interest, others suspected something strange about the secrecy and the haste of the proposed sale. One of the dealers even began making quiet inquiries, and word of a possible fraud reached the authorities before Lustig could close the deal. Realizing the net was tightening, he abandoned the scheme and fled Paris, escaping just in time. Though his second attempt failed, the fact that he managed to sell the Eiffel Tower once and nearly pulled it off again secured his reputation as one of history's greatest con men. For Lustig, this was just one chapter in a life of frauds and swindles. He later traveled to the United States, where he pulled off numerous schemes, including tricking gangsters and even counterfeiting currency, before finally being captured by the Secret Service in 1935. Yet the Eiffel Tower con remains his most legendary feat, not because of the money he made, but because of the sheer brilliance of the idea. It was a crime that exploited perception, vanity, and human weakness more than anything else. What made Lustig extraordinary was that he did not rely on weapons, threats, or violence. Instead, he relied on confidence, intelligence, and the willingness of people to believe what they wanted to believe. He created an illusion so convincing that even seasoned businessmen fell for it, and he knew that their shame would keep them silent, allowing him to escape without consequence. Today, his story is remembered not as a tale of brutality, but as a testament to the power of persuasion and deception. It forces us to ask, was Victor Lustig a criminal genius, or simply a man who happened to strike at the perfect moment in history? The Eiffel Tower still stands more iconic than ever, but hidden within its iron beams is the memory of the time it was sold. Not once, but twice, by a man whose brilliance was as undeniable as it was illegal. And now we ask, was this the greatest con ever pulled, or just the luckiest scam in history? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you enjoyed this story of illegal brilliance, don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us for more tales of unbelievable yet true crimes.